going on for 11 minutes after 9. Time for our special health and science focus on COVID-19 today. Investigative journalist Khadija Patel, as well as several members of her family, contracted the coronavirus earlier this year. Well, she joins us this morning to talk candidly about her experience in overcoming this. Khadija, a very good morning to you. How are you feeling at the moment?
I'm much better, thankfully. I recovered. I think it's almost 2 months since my quarantine. So, yeah, I'm grateful to be counted in the recoveries column.
Okay, great. Khadija, I mean, just reading your story about the number of family members testing positive, your mum, we understand, is still recovering. Just take us back to when you found out that you were positive, you were awaiting an operation, you were undergoing that. Just tell us where it all started.
I had actually finished off at the Mail and Guardian, where I worked as the editor-in-chief at the end of May. And I had, on the last day that I, on the day that I had said, my final farewell to the team, I actually began an intensive treatment for an autoimmune disease. And my mum was administering that treatment for me. And it's significant that I tell you this because I was basically shutting down my immune system. And of course, I was advised by my doctors to isolate as much as possible for the next 2 weeks because I was effectively shutting down my immune system at a time when, COVID-19 was raging outside. The next day, we got a phone call from my cousin to say another cousin of mine had tested positive for COVID-19, and it felt surreal. I still remember my mom telling me this, and thinking, "What nonsense! How could she be positive?" But significantly, we all had to go for tests because my cousin had been here at our house. She's an occupational therapist, and she dropped off her child for us to take care of. She works at a school, so schools had reopened that week. She was required to be there for meetings, and so we all went off for our tests. I mean, at that time, it was a Saturday. I didn't feel ill at all. That night, however, I started feeling quite ill. My chest actually started feeling tight. I was feeling short of breath. My mom by then already felt like she had the flu. And the next morning at 4 a.m., my phone buzzed, and there was a message from the laboratory saying that I had tested positive. And it felt surreal. I almost, you think this has to be a mistake. But yeah, in a moment, your entire life gets upended.
And at that stage, Khadija, I'm sure, battling an autoimmune condition as well, you must have feared the worst for yourself. And at that time, we also hadn't known, about that many recoveries. We didn't know so much about it back in May. It was still kind of early days for us. And I can just imagine just what your state of mind must have been. So what were the next couple of weeks like for you? I mean, did you find that some people, feel better in a matter of days? Did you have to take lots of medication? What was your treatment regimen? And did it take very long for you to get back on your feet?
So I had very moderate symptoms, as you pointed out, several members of my extended family eventually tested positive at the same time. And I think what's important to know is that every person experiences COVID-19 very, very differently. Everybody's symptoms were different. Some lighter than others. I had very, very moderate symptoms, but at the same time, as moderate as my symptoms were, I'd never felt that ill ever. Of course, I kept reading that, comparisons to the flu, and while, some part of it is certainly like the flu, other parts are just not the flu at all. And yeah, there isn't, there isn't a magic drug. So it's paracetamol for the pain and the fever, and lots of vitamins. At one stage, I remember my doctor joking that he sounds like a homeopath because what he was telling me to do was, steam inhalation twice a day, vitamin C, zinc, all the things that I think that, the pharmacists right now are dispensing for COVID-19 patients. It really was a combination of just paracetamol and every vitamin, and really at home remedy, thought of by thought and broadcast over WhatsApp. We tried everything.
So the rest of your family members, and just to kind of clear the picture in our minds, because it wasn't like your entire family had congregated in one place and now the rest of them, the 11 others or 12 others, including you, who had tested positive, just all got it because you were in the same place at the same time. But was your house, if I could put it that way, the epicenter of this? Because I understand that your family runs a business from home and lots of relatives work for you guys as well, or with you guys. So just explain how that happened.
So the thing is, we're not exactly sure what was the point of infection. We're reasonably sure that it was, it's one of us who had been out, perhaps at the schools or at the shops, who had picked it up. But we are not sure, it's difficult for us to pinpoint exactly who was patient zero, for example. We didn't have, a big gathering, but it was, just the circumstance of the fact that, our house is quite central to the family, in that, we share childcare as well as, the business, being, the family business, as it were. So that's, and then, it's difficult.
Yeah.
I wish, we joke about it at some point, because, a lot of people, wanted us, how did you get it? How did you get it? And the truth is that we're not exactly sure how we got it. We're not sure, who exactly patient zero was and where they actually picked up the infection. But honestly, Rebecca, I think that, and I think this is true for many, many COVID-19 patients, and certainly, in my experience, questions about how did you get it? So how did you get it? Actually end up feeling quite insensitive to people while they're battling
and
with
very
this,
suspicious as well. I mean, I had a family member who tested positive.
It is a terrible.
Yes. And it kind of, makes you feel like you went out and got some dreaded disease out there, or an STD or something, kind of like that kind of insinuation when people ask, but how did he get it? So, Khadija, what was the most difficult part of this? Mental health has played a big part. There's been a lot of focus on somebody mental health, especially in isolation, in quarantine as well. Did you hit a low point yourself?
I think it was very difficult for me because at the stage that it was just my mum and I in my household that had tested positive. My father and my sister, remarkably, were negative. So my mum and I were isolating separately from the rest of the household. And about a few days into the 2-week period, my mum was hospitalized. So up until then, at least I had her company. At least I was around her. At least I had some human contact. Once my mom was hospitalized, I was completely alone, and though I saw my family through the window, spoke to them on the phone, and had lots of friends and family checking up on me. Just that fact of human touch, the human touch, and being able to touch somebody and hug somebody, you struggle with that. But on top of that, I ended up being severely ill, as I write about in Pakisisa this week. My mum was ventilated, so too one of my aunts. At some point, we had 4 relatives in hospital.
Wow.
2 of them on ventilators, and I think that the fact that you cannot visit, you are left, sort of.
It's the not knowing, I suppose, of all of this. Khadija, very quickly, because we are losing our connection to you, Khadija, but I just want to know very quickly what's happening with your mum at the moment, because it's a long time for her to still be recovering.
So my mom was in hospital for close on 7 weeks, almost 2 months. She was discharged from hospital, thankfully, last weekend. She's now at home, recovering at home. She's still dependent on oxygen therapy and is receiving intensive physio to get her muscles moving again. But we're just grateful that, she somehow beat it. And we are hoping that the recovery goes well.
All right. Well, we're grateful that all of your family members are here, so with you, and and thank you, Khadija, for sharing your journey with us. It's often not easy to talk about this, like you say, especially with stigma still being a big part of this pandemic. Thank you so much, and crossing fingers for everyone else in your family who is still recovering.